Hi, this video is to help students who are criminal justice majors at Cal State Fullerton navigate their Titan degree audits. In order to start, it will be helpful if you actually pull up your own Titan degree audit, or TDA as we call it. So please take a moment and pause this video and get your own TDA so that you can follow along. The TDA I'm using is that of a fictional student, Tuffy Titan. Okay, so starting at the top of your TDA, the first thing I want you to notice is here, the catalog year. The catalog year for this student is fall 2021. All of you will have different catalog years that will depend on when you entered Cal State Fullerton, or possibly when you entered higher education in California at all. This catalog year is important to keep track of because it tells you what requirements you are going to be held to. So this is being demonstrated with a current catalog student with fall 2021. Your catalog requirements may be different, so that's why you may see different things in here. The second items I want to pull your attention to on this page are here at the top. So first of these is a prepared on. This tells you when this TDA was run. When you run your TDA, it will actually keep a number of previous ones in memory for you. And sometimes students can get a little confused as they click on an older TDA. It's run with the classes that the computer thinks you've had at that time. So your TDA will actually change as time goes on. But these are static, so you'll need to run a new one if you want to see where you are now. The other thing I want to point your attention to here is the graduation date. In the case of this student, it's unknown. For most students, you will actually see this as unknown. When you file for graduation, which will be after you have completed 85 units, this will actually be set. This is important to note because that's when we begin our graduation check process. So it's an important thing that you and your advisors will pay attention to as it goes along. The other thing I want to point your attention to here at the top is a notice that often throws students, but it really doesn't mean very much. Here at the top, it says important information regarding final evaluation and or grad checkout status. Final evaluation status incomplete. This often scares students to think that their courses haven't actually been evaluated and equated to Cal State Fullerton courses. But this is actually what will be displayed for the bulk of your time at Cal State Fullerton, because until you have actually had your grad checkout completed to your graduating, this will say incomplete for most students. This includes full-time freshmen who've never had any transfer courses. So this is a bit of a misleading indicator here. So I want you to ignore that one as best you can. However, when we look at this, we do see one of the first things we're going to see, which is there's an X on this. In this version, it shows up on my screen as an orange box with a black X in it. When you run these as HTMLs, you'll see this usually is a red box with an X in it. A red box means that this is something that is not yet complete for you. That is, if you were to try to be graduated as of this very moment, this would hold you up. So a red X is something that is incomplete, whereas a green, or on my screen it will show up possibly as a blue check mark, will mean that it has been completed. The idea is that by the time you graduate, you want to have a whole series of blue checks. The TDA will not count any requirement as having been met until you have actually completed it. That is, you have gotten a grade in it, and that grade is now reflected. So if you got that grade at a community college, the transcript has both arrived at Cal State Fullerton, been processed, and the class has been put in the correct category. For classes taken at Cal State Fullerton, this will mean you've actually completed the course. We'll see this in a little bit when we talk about in-progress courses. So let's begin. The TDA is divided into 3 sections. You'll see these sections divided off with these lines with a bunch of asterisks, stars in them. The first section is the general education requirements. The next section with these lines, if you scroll down after you get to general education, you'll see is the majors requirements. So it says major requirements. And if you go below the major, you will see summary of units. This is where it talks about the overall unit requirements for degrees. So there's 3 sections you're going to have to pay attention to in these TDAs. Okay, so let's go through it. GE. First, for advising on GE, we recommend that you consult with the Academic Advising Center, also called the AAC. They are the ones who are experts on advising you on which classes can count where. However, the TDA will actually list all the classes that you will need. So here, with this fictional Tuffy Titan student here, we can see this green/blue checks and red or orange X's at work already. So this student has transferred in a class that counts as the A1 requirement. They've completed A1, they've completed A3, but they have not completed A2. So you see the classes that they are counting for A1 and A3 are listed there. And under A2, it says take, and it lists a number of classes, in this case, pretty much all English classes, because this is the written communication requirement. So let's scroll down a little bit more, and we can see what it looks like when it's in progress. This is actually, if you think about it, a mixture of the two. So this student has classes that are listed as in progress. That is to say, they have not yet gotten a final grade in these classes. So they show up as that IP right there in the middle of the screen for these spring 2021 classes. They show up in the correct location, in this case, area B1, but it still lists all these various classes that you can take. This is because, according to the system, it doesn't give you credit for these classes until you get that passing grade in those classes. So if you were to look at this and you're planning your future schedule, you would likely want to build in whether or not you think you're going to pass that class. So if you are this student and you're in Astronomy 101, there, you would sort of say, okay, I'm meeting the requirement, I'm good to go. I think I'm going to pass this class. One thing to note about GE is that since 2018, GE and major classes can double count. So when you see some GE areas, let's scroll down and we'll see, for example, area D4 for this student. This is a criminal justice major, but you'll see it actually lists criminal justice classes there that they can take. Criminal justice 300, 320, 322, 385. All of these are listed as potential classes that will meet area D4. In the case of a criminal justice major, criminal justice 300 is in fact required for the major. So this student shouldn't sign up for any D4 classes. In fact, no criminal justice major should intentionally sign up for D4 classes thinking they need them, because every single one of them is going to have to take criminal justice 300, and they will meet that requirement through their major. Let's talk a little bit then about the major requirements. Here, under major requirements, you see the student hasn't completed as much. This is common. So let's go over the requirements here for the CJ major. Criminal justice requires 21 units in its core curriculum. Those classes are listed here. You'll see it says take criminal justice 100, 300, 310A, 315, 330, 340, and 345. It just lists them separated by commas. That's the way the computer displays this. If you see something like that, it means you have to take all these classes. So the 21 units will come from those 7 classes. Each one of these is a 3-unit class. You'll see that this student is enrolled in a class at Fullerton College, AJ 100, which we count as being equivalent to our CJ 100 at Cal State Fullerton. But since they haven't gotten a grade in it, it doesn't count yet. So it still shows up as something they need to take. So it's getting that red X. When the student has that class completed, it will still, this core curriculum area will still show up as the red X. Nothing will actually change, but that CRJU 100 will go away from the list of things to take. So it still lists them while you are enrolled in them, while they are in progress. But once you have successfully completed them, that requirement goes away. Another thing you will see is that all criminal justice classes have this requirement there listed at the top, which says a C- grade or better is required in all core and elective class courses applied toward the major. So this means that if you don't pass that AJ 100 at Fullerton College with a better than C- grade, it will actually not count for this requirement. So the criminal justice curriculum requires these 7 core classes, 21 units of core classes. It also requires 15 units of criminal justice electives. You'll see these range from, in the category here, from criminal justice 300 to 499. This doesn't include the core curriculum. The core curriculum classes will automatically count towards the core, and they will not count as electives. But everything else in criminal justice will count here as an elective. Note I said criminal justice. For transfer students, your administration of justice classes, we do count one of them, your introductory class, for our criminal justice 100, but every other course we have here in criminal justice is a 300 or 400 level course. They are upper division, and your courses at the community college were lower division, so they will not count for these electives. So you will need to take 15 units of electives. The next requirement you'll see for the criminal justice major is that 9 units must be at the 400 level. What does this mean? Well, this means that 3 of those 5 elective courses must be taken at the 400 level. This is something to watch out for. If you take 3 300 level classes of electives in criminal justice, they will count, but they'll really only count for your GPA, which is down here below. Finally, you'll see that criminal justice requires a class to be taken for the writing requirement. This is actually a university requirement that is met through the major. And the 2 classes that count for it, English 301 or English 365, are listed here. Finally, there's that GPA requirement. All majors at Cal State Fullerton have a minimum GPA of 2.0 overall. Since criminal justice requires a C- or better, most of our students don't run into problems here. However, if you do get D's and F's along the way, those will drag down your major GPA, even though you can't count them as passing for the major. Okay, I want to go then on to this last section here, summary of units. For most transfer students, for most full-time freshman students, this section on unit requirements is largely not important. However, the sections below it are very important. Transfer unit maximum. 70 units is the maximum that can be transferred from a 2-year college, and 90 units is the maximum that can be transferred if you went to a 4-year university, or a combination of a 2-year and a 4-year. This ends up mattering. If you take more than 70 units at a community college, they will count the 70 units that they feel will help you the best, that will count towards the most GE requirements or major requirements. This is not always going to be the classes you wanted to count. You can talk to folks in the transfer unit on campus if you want to change the classes they are counting. The last section I want to point out, though, is a requirement that many students often neglect. And that is this thing here, marked with a red X, the cumulative number of units applied towards the degree. This degree requires a minimum of 120 units. In fact, all degrees have a minimum of 120 units. The GE requirements for the are 48 units. The major requirements are 39 units. 48 plus 39, assuming there's not even any double counting, is only 87 units. So this student, and pretty much all criminal justice students and most majors at the university, have to take more classes than are required for the GE requirement or for their major. This means just more classes. Those classes can be anything you choose. You can take underwater basket weaving at the 100 level. You could take more criminal justice classes. You could take sociology classes, kinesiology classes, chemistry classes. It literally does not matter. You do not need to add a minor, but you can. You do not need to double major, but you could do that as well. Or you could not and just take other classes. But nobody can get a degree at Cal State Fullerton with less than 120 units. So this is something you have to pay attention to. Always make sure you are keeping track on that. One way in which students can sometimes be confused is looking at the requirements of what you've completed. If you take a class in criminal justice and you get a D plus or lower, so it doesn't count. So you get a D plus or a D or a D minus. It will not count towards the major, but those will actually generate 3 units for you. If you repeat that class, you will not gain new units for that. That is something that often trips up students, so it's something that you should keep an eye for.